Okay. Will the real Moshiach please stand up? So, as the title suggests, tonight's going to be the big reveal. The big reveal. So, who are the candidates? Anybody here want to try their luck? Okay. So, we have 3 pages over here, a bit of a journey. And we're going to see some fascinating things. We begin with number 1. So every Jew knows about Mashiach. Every person on the planet's probably heard about Messiah in some language or another. And the Rambam does write that that's thanks to Christianity, created awareness. You know, at least one positive aspect. And every Jewish kid grows up knowing that believing in Mashiach is one of the main beliefs of Yiddishkeit. And we hope, and we are machak, as the Rambam writes, we anticipate, we eagerly await his coming, day in, day out, whenever, almost by every speech or every drasha ends off with Uvola Tzi and Goyel, may Mashiach come in our times, we live it, we breathe it, and first of all, we're going to see that it's bechlal not so pashut, it's not unanimous, that there's going to be a Mashiach. Now hold on. Before your jaw drops and hits the floor.
Hit the floor.
You should just know that it's starting like this. The Rambam writes there are 13 principles of faith. By the way, this also relates to this week's parsha. It relates to this week. You'll see it all in Mitzvah Shem, if you, as long as you stay till 12:30. Then you will see everything. The Rambam created the idea of 13 principles of faith. And that if someone is lacking in one of those ikrim, in one of those principles of faith, then they're not considered a believing Jew. That's what the Rambam writes. And it would affect their olam haba, their world to come. They're not considered a believing Jew. And there's a famous statement of Reb Chaim Brisker, who we spoke about on Sunday morning. If somebody nebach grows up amongst goyim and is unaware of these principal tenets of Jewish faith, Reb Chaim said, he's nebach and apikairis. Nebach, it's not his fault or her fault, but they're still a non-believer. In order to get olam haba, there are certain things you have to be aware of and believe. And if you don't, even though it's no fault of your own, you grew up amongst goyim, but the fact is, you're not wearing the suit, you can't go to the ball. You have an excuse, a justification, fine. And Reb Chaim famously coined the expression, nebach and apikairis. It happens to be many disagree with Reb Chaim, and they believe that according to the Rambam, you're only considered a heretic if you know what you should believe and you deliberately don't. And that's a big debate, not for now. But the Rambam does say that there are 13 principles of faith, and if you're missing in one of them, you're pashut considered a non-believer, you're a kafir, you're a heretic. And one of them is believing Mashiach's going to come. Another one is tchiyas hamesim, that the dead will arise. Throughout history, there were many great Rabbanim who had a problem with the Rambam creating 13 principles of faith. How do you decide what's a principle? Everything. If somebody somebody denies any part of the Torah, any Jewish tenet, any Jewish belief, how do you know what's considered a principle, and that if you don't believe in it, you're out of the ballpark? Versus other things which are trivial, and if you don't believe in it, no, you're still okay. How does the Rambam know? And the Rambam makes 13. It's well known that there was a great man by the name of Rabbi Yosef Alboy, who wrote the Ikrim. And he was a philosopher in Spain, a couple hundred years after the Rambam. The Rambam passes away in 1204. And this guy passes away in the 1440s. It's about 200 years later plus. And his whole Sefer Ikrim is arguing on the Rambam's 13 principles. He feels there's only 3.
Well, it combines in the 3, It's included,
For example, one of the 3 is believed as reward and punishment. But you don't have to believe in tchiyas hamesim. What the reward is, God knows. According to the Ikrim, if someone doesn't believe in tchiyas hamesim, he's not considered a heretic. According to the Rambam, he is. Now, with that in mind, join me in number 1. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. Hillel Omer. Hillel said, Reb Hillel. This is not the Hillel the original Hillel, the father of the master of Beis Hillel. This is a great grandchild, probably the Reb Hillel who made the calendar. But he says, Ein lohem Mashiach li Yisrael. The Yidden will not have a Mashiach. There is no Mashiach. It's not coming. Shekvar ochlu b'mei Chizkiah. We already consumed it in the times of Chizkiyahu. That means that Yeshaya speaks at length, comforting that the Yotza Yeshaya speaks about a person who will be a king and etc. etc. Well, says Rabbi Hillel, Yeshaya was during the times of Chizkiyahu. He was the father-in-law of Chizkiyahu. All of the prophecies in Yeshaya about a Redeemer were referring to Chizkiyahu. And we know that there, before Mashiach comes, there's going to be Goig and Magog. Magog is a country, Goig is the king, and there will be the nations, Goig and Magog will come against Eretz Yisrael, and they will suffer a major defeat.
What's the verb? Goig Magog. What's that?
There's a country and the king, the country and the leader. There's Sichon and there's Cheshbon, right? And like Rashi says, each one on its own would be hard to conquer. There's 2 things. So there's lots to hold on. So so there's going to be a big war, and Goig and Magog will lose that war, and that will bring about the coming of Mashiach. That's the tradition. According to Rabbi Hillel, that happened in the times of Chizkiyahu. Sancheriv, who traveled to Jerusalem to wage a war, he was Goig, his country of Ashur. Magog and Chizkiah had a supernatural victory over Sancheriv. All of the boxes were checked. Everything was ticked. Chizkiah was going to be Mashiach. And as the Gemara famously says, Chizkiah could have been, he could have, would have, should have, but he did not properly praise Hashem. He didn't sing like his Zayda David sang after David was victorious, and because of that, the opportunity was lost. Says Rabbi Hillel that all of the promises of Mashiach were referring to Chizkiah. We lost it. We weren't worthy. We weren't worthy, and therefore it's not happening. Now, hold on. Rashi writes that, hold your horses, according to Rabbi Hillel, there won't be a Mashiach, there won't be a physical king. It's going to be God himself. Rashi says, according to Rabbi Hillel, it's actually much better. There won't be a human being living and breathing who will redeem us like Moshe when we left Mitzrayim. It's going to be the Eibishter himself. So according to Rashi, Rabbi Hillel's not diminishing what's going to be, he's actually elevating it. But the simple reading is Rabbi Hillel says, Mashiach ain't coming. If not for Rashi, you may have thought Rabbi Hillel meant we're stuck here forever, we're going to be in Golos forever, like there's no end. Which that's preposterous. How could Rabbi Hillel say such a thing? So Rashi says, no, everything is the way you imagine when you were younger, but there's not going to be a physical king. It's going to be the Eibush is going to do it. In this way, it'll be different than leaving Mitzrayim. Amar Rav Yosef, the Amoyed Rav Yosef said, Shara le Mare le Rabbi Hillel, may God forgive Rabbi Hillel for his statement. Chizkiah Amos, when was Chizkiah Babayis Rishon? Chizkiah lives about 2/3 of the way in the first Beis HaMikdash. He's about 2/3 of the way into the first Beis HaMikdash. That's when the 10 tribes went into exile from the northern kingdom. But Zechariah, there's a Navi called Zechariah. And one of the last Nevi'im, Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. And when is he come? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. The last 3 Nevi'im are in the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash. They prophesize until about 40 years into the second Beis HaMikdash, when Malachi passes away, which is exactly 1,000 years after the Yidden leave Mitzrayim. They left in 2448, and the year that Nevuah ends in 3448 is also the rise of Alexander of Macedonia. We had a long shir about that once upon a time. But Zechariah is way after Chizkiah. He says, Gili Ma'od Bas Tzion, rejoice, daughter of Zion, Ari, and sing Bas Yerushalayim. There's a king coming, he's a tzaddik, and he's victorious, and he's a humble man, he's riding on a donkey, etc. Ani v'roichav al chamor, etc., etc. Zechariah speaks about Moshiach 200 years after Chizkiyahu.
Also, Goy Gemogek is
Yes, good.
later.
Yes, yeah.
Shai is also after.
Shai is Chizkiyahu's father-in-law, as the Gemara says in Brachos. So this is a famous Gemara. So yeah, you wonder what's Reb Hillel, what's Reb Hillel going to do with that pasuk in Zechariah. But Rav Yosef really, he says, Sharalei Mori, may God forgive him. Now, what did Reb Hillel mean? Did Reb Hillel Taka mean that there's no Mashiach? According to the Rambam, he's a heretic. The Rambam writes one of the 13 ikrim is to believe that there's going to be a man from the house of David, and he accomplishes whatever he accomplishes. According to the Rambam, it's very clear that believing that there's a person that will redeem us is the 12th ikr, the 12th of the 13th is Tchias HaMesim. So the ikrim in number 2, Rabbi Yosef Elboy, begins his sefer with this problem. In number 2 he says, V'chein biyas HaMashiach, the coming of Mashiach. The Rambam zal monoi echad mi'ikrei Teiras Moshe. The Rambam counts as one of the 13 principles of Teiras Moshe. And it's a foundation, it's a foundation. Lefid Dvarv, according to the Rambam, if someone denies the coming of Mashiach, he's miklal ha'koifrim be'ikr, he considered a heretic on the main principles, me'ikre teres Moshe. You know, a guy could be completely frum and he's giving shiurim and everything, and is the greatest, he looks like a tzaddik, he gives brachas, he has ruach HaKodesh. If he doesn't believe that there's going to be a man, Mashiach, who will take us out of here, he's out. He is beyond the pale, he's past the red line. And his yotzim miklal adas, he's not within Judaism. He has no chelik in the world to come. That's what the Rambam writes in his commentary to Masechta Sanhedrin. And so the V'chein Monoi, who's counts it in the Sefer Hamada, in the 3rd parak of Hilchas Tshuva, he's b'chlal ha'koifrim, he's a non-believer. V'zeh dover matmiya ma'oi, this is a wonder, says the Ikrim, it's a wonder. We find in Gemara Sanhedrin, we saw number 1. Rabbi Hillel, who was echad mechachemis on his karma. Rabbi Hillel is not a random guy. Rabbi Hillel is one of the chachmei Talmud, and he says, "Ein lahem Mashiach liYisrael shekvar achlub mechizkiah melech Yehuda." He says we already consumed all of the promises in the times of Chizkiah, and that's it. Ulefi Divrei Rambam, that Chacham is miklal ha'koifrim, is a heretic, and he doesn't have a portion in the world to come. So you'll say, okay, maybe Taka, maybe the Rambam would say that. He said, Yesh Lishol, then I'll ask you, Im Kain Lama his cure, why would the Gemara mention him? His name is also Rebbe Hillel. Why would he have the Rebbe? What type of Rebbe is that if he's a kofer? God forbid. If his yotzim miklal Yisrael, according to the Rambam, he's beyond the pale, and he doesn't believe in the ikr tenets of Judaism. So v'im term, if you're going to say, well, Taka, Rav Yosef screamed at him. Rav Yosef Taka said, may God forgive you. Sheviu dvarav lahashrele. Maybe they brought his words just to upshlag. Maybe they only quoted him in order to present the response that was given. But then no, we shouldn't mention his name b'shem Rebbe. Don't call him Rebbe. And to say Shmuel Mepir b'Shuma, to ever quote from him. So like we said, according to Rashi, Rebbe Hillel was saying in the future, everything's going to happen the way you were told when you were younger. But there won't be a physical king, it's going to be the Eibishter. It's very hard to say that the Rambam would call such a person a kofer. Because like we said, he's not diminishing, he's elevating. Would the Rambam really say if someone believes when he left Mitzrayim there was a human being? Mashiach comes, it's God himself. You're a kofer? He's a bigger believer. So the Abar Benel, Rabbi Yitzchak Abar Benel, Don Yitzchak Abar Benel, one of his Sfarim, Taka writes that, come on, you got to be reasonable over here. The Rambam would not call such a person a kofer if he's enhancing and expanding what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. Right, so that's how he wants to take care of the Ikrim Shiloh. The Ikrim himself quotes a number of people. He quotes Ibn Bilam, one of the great Spanish Rishonim philosophers, Ibn Bilam, who, by the way, held there's more than 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. The fact there are 613 is not unanimous, although in Kabbalah 613 is a very precise number, but there were some Rishonim who held there are actually more biblical mitzvahs in the end of the day. But this Ibn Bilam also said like this, Rabbi Hillel believed what every single kid believes. What Rabbi Hillel, that there's going to be a king and he's going to have a beautiful crown on his head, right? He's going to be everything that you would. But Rabbi Hillel was saying is you can't prove it from the Psukim. You can't take a Tanakh and prove it because I'll say that and that and that was referring to Chizkiyahu. It's part of our tradition. As from Jews, it's part of our tradition, and every kid grows up knowing it, and we believe it, and etc. If you want to bring out the Bible, I'll tell you can't prove from the Psukim. That's how Ibn Bilam wanted to explain it. So the Ikrim says, I don't buy it. So why did Rav Yosef scream at him, may God forgive you? What did he do? What's the big deal? If one Tana brings something from a pasuk, another one says, no, it's taka true what you're saying, but I think the pasuk means something else. You don't scream at the guy. You never scream at the guy. What did he do wrong? So in number 4, the Ikrim says, if it's true what Ibn Bilam says, we wouldn't call him a sinner. Rav Yosef said, may God forgive him. In other words, he sinned. You can't call him a sinner on the fact that he just said the pasuk doesn't prove. If he believed it al pi Kabbalah, k'moishi spor b'maimer haravi. The Ikrim holds anything which is an Ikr of Judaism, as long as you believe in it, you're not considered a sinner, even if you taina it's not based on psukim, it's just based on tradition. So for the same thing he said, if Ibn Bilam is right, what did Rabbi Hillel do wrong? He's saying the psukim in Yeshaya refer to Chizkiah, throw him out of shul. I mean, he believes what you believe, relax. It can't be. But Pashtus is talking about
Sounds like two things.
No, according to who? According to who? According to which opinion? No. According to Ibn Bilam, he believes in everything everyone believes in. He was just saying there's no raya from the psukim that there's going to be a king, a Mashiach. So, B'chal king, no, any king. There won't be a Mashiach. So the Ikrim himself says, Ella, number 4, the third line, believe Safik without question. The fact Rav Yosef screamed at him, it must be Rabbi Hillel did not believe there would be a Mashiach. He did not believe there would be a person. Now, does the Ikrim learn like Rashi, he believed it was going to come from God? The Ikrim doesn't say clearly. The Ikrim doesn't throw Rashi into the discussion. I told it to you not to... What?
According to logic, no, because he wouldn't scream at him either for that.
Why not?
So No, so for that, the Abarbanel says that's why he wouldn't be a kafir.
Because the Rambam says you have to believe.
Because if he's wrong, he's wrong. If he's wrong, no, they did that. No, then you would because he's wrong. According to Ibn Bilam, is Bechal not wrong? He believes in what we believe in. He just tines it's from a tradition. But according to this, with the Abarbanel, he's not a kafir because he's enhancing. But if he's wrong, so you got to tell him he's wrong. So you could say that.
What did Yeshaya?
So continues the Ikrim. He understands. He says he thinks according to Rabbi the Bechlal no Mashiach, but nonetheless he's not a kafir. He said, and the Ikrim says, you know why? Because I think the Rambam's wrong. It's not one of the 13 principles to believe there's going to be a Mashiach, like the Rambam writes. I disagree. Because you can actually imagine things unfolding without a Mashiach. Okay.
You have to believe in the goal.
So l'chayra, Rabbi Hillel didn't mean we would languish in exile forever. L'chayra, he didn't mean that. That doesn't make any sense.
You don't have to believe in that king.
Okay. There's more details of it. There's a famous Ran. The Ran holds, according to Rabbi Hillel, he goes with Rashi that there won't be a physical king. Hashem will come. What's going to happen is if Hashem comes, we're going to go straight to Tchiyas HaMesim. Let me explain. Usually we say that together with the Mashiach, there's Yemais HaMashiach. Together with a physical king, there's also the days, the Mashiach era, when things will be like utopia. There won't be any wars, and perhaps there'll be many miracles, and life will be... That's Yemais HaMashiach, and there's going to be physical mitzvahs. We will continue to eat and drink the meal of Levyasan. When it says Olam Haba has no achila, no shtiya, etc., no eating and drinking, that's much later. That's when the dead come to life. That's a later period. There's Mashiach. together with him there's the heir of Mashiach, and that leads us later on into the future, la'asid love of the future, where things will change drastically, and that's called Olam Haba. Fine. According to the Ran, Rabbi Hillel scratched out both Mashiach and Yemais HaMashiach. He believes Hashem will come and take us directly into Tchiyas HaMesim, which means, according to Rabbi Hillel, he is scratching out both the physical king and also an entire era, entire chunk of time which the average Jew believes in. Okay? So that's just to let you know that. Okay, fine. So there's a major debate between the Rambam and the Ikrim if believing in Mashiach is one of the 13 principles. The Ikrim holds it's not, and he believes, according to Rabbi Hillel, there's not going to be a Mashiach, which according to Rashi means will be the Eibush to himself, and the Ran adds that means there won't be the entire era of Mashiach either. We're going to go straight to what's called La'asid Lavai, the Olam Haba, etc. That's true.
So according to the Ikrim, if I don't believe in the Golan, okay. Not just Mashiach, I don't believe...
You have to believe in Schar V'Oinish. You have to believe in Schar V'Oinish. Now there's other things, there's so many Psukim in Tanakh that speak about it, but that gets into another issue. What if there's any random Pasuk in Tanakh you don't believe in? What does that make you? Okay, let's leave this. Okay, fine. So believing that there's going to be a Mashiach is B'chal Machlokes. But of course, mainstream Judaism follows the Rambam that believing in Mashiach as a person is not only an important thing, it's one of the 13 principles. Even according to the Ikrim, you have to believe it. It's just if you don't, you're not considered a kafir. The Rambam holds you're a kafir. Fine. Join me in number 5. Gemarim Psachim. Shiva Dvarim Nivru Kaidem Shenivra Eilam. 7 things were created before the world. 7 things were created before the world. The Elohein, and the Gemara lists all 7. Torah. Torah was 2,000 years before the world. Tshuva, repentance. Before the Eibishter created the world, he gave us the option. He knew what's going to happen, and he already created the healing tool, the antidote. Gan Eden was created before the world, as is Gehenna. Kisei HaKavod, God's chair of glory. Beis HaMikdash, the Beis HaMikdash, which would mean in heaven. There's a Beis HaMikdash corresponding to the one down here. And also Shmoi Shel Mashiach, the name of Mashiach. This, and the Gemara brings psukim to prove each one. But the 7th and final one is the name of Mashiach. And that means Mashiach is a physical, but it doesn't say the days of Mashiach, the era, the Yemais HaMashiach. No, the name of Mashiach is a person. According to this Gemara, the name of Mashiach as a person, is so integral that God established it even before He created the world. The world couldn't start off if already Mashiach hasn't been designated with a name as a person. So that Gemara definitely demonstrates that the identity of Mashiach is critical. The Eibishter already chose his name. Okay? So despite what the Ikrim says, you see that Mashiach as an individual was created before the world. It sounds like it's quite crucial. In number 6 is a well-known Gemara in Sanhedrin, and it goes like this. Mashmoi, what's the name of Mashiach? And the Gemara brings a famous debate, and you're going to see where we're going with this. We're going to see some fascinating information. Please hold on. What's the name of Mashiach in number 6? Dvei Rab Shiloi Omri, the yeshiva of Rab Shiloi said, Shiloi Shmoi, his name is Shiloi. As it says, Ad Ki Yavai Shiloi. The Apostle Yankov promises Yehuda kings will forever come from you. Ad Ki Yavai Shiloi, till Shiloi comes. Says the Gemara, Shiloi, that's Mashiach. That's his name. Now, who were the ones that stated this? The yeshiva of Shiloi, Dvei Rab Shiloi. How?
Are they saying he's Mashiach?
Well, they didn't say those words. They said it's going to be his name. Dvei Rab Yanai Omri. Rab Yanai's yeshiva said Yinon Shmoi. His name is Yinon. Shenemar Yehi Shmoi La'olam Lifnei Shemesh Yinon Shmoi. It says in Tehillim, David HaMelech was saying about Shlomo, his name should be forever. Before the sun, Yinoin Shmoi, which simply means Yinoin means to be great, to be a leader. As long as the sun lasts, the name of my son Shlomo will have his authority. But what this yeshiva was saying is Yinoin Shmoi, his name is Yinoin.
Yeshiva for Yanai said.
Exactly, you heard it. Devei Rabbi Chanina said, Chanina Shmoi, his name is Chanina. Shenemar, it's a pasuk in Yirmiyah, that it's actually a curse to the Yidden that they're going to be sent into exile. Asher loy etein lochem Chanina, I will give you no grace, Hashem says. But that means you'll have no Redeemer. Chanina is the name of the Redeemer. V'yeshem, some say Menachem ben Chizkiah, his name is Menachem, the son of Chizkiah. As it says, Kirachak mimeni Menachem meishiv nafshi, it says in Eicha, that is far from me, the comforter, the one who will restore my soul. Now that pasuk only proves Menachem. So the Maharsha says Chizkiah was a tradition. They had a tradition, his father's name would be Chizkiah, but his name himself is Menachem. Rabbanon, the rabbis say, Chivra devei Rebbe Shmo, he's known as the one struck with leprosy from the house of Rebbe. There's a debate if it means literally from Rebbe's family, or it means from Rebbe's yeshiva. Rebbe's Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the one who codified the Mishnais. Devei Rebbe, does it mean his yeshiva, or does it mean his house? But someone from Rebbe's house who was struck with tsaras, that's him. Shenem, as it says, Achen chalyenu hu nasa, he bears our illnesses, umachavenu sivlam, and he bears our pain. We chashavnu nagua, we considered him that he was just, he had a nega and he was hit. And Ma'uni was afflicted. We didn't know that he was suffering for our sins. The idea that Moshiach suffers for our sins, and which the Christians, right? At basic, it's one of the 13 principles of one of the 3 principles in the Christian faith. And it's funny, I've heard many Yidden saying, we don't believe in it, it's not true at all. There are many sources in Torah to this idea. It does say that children won't die for their parents' sin, and Avos lo yumsu abanim. That's talking about generally, but there is an idea that the tzaddikim nitfosim ba'avoin hadar, the great tzaddikim do get are held accountable for the punishments of the generation. And what?
It's a description though.
Yeah. Well, that we're going to see about that, right? It doesn't seem. What type of name is Chivra, right? Not really. It's not really a first name. Amar Rav Nachman. Now it continues. Amar Rav Nachman said, Rav Nachman, I min chayahu, if Moshiach is from someone who's alive, kagoyin anno, it's going to be someone like me. Rashi has a shaila if the word kagoyin means for example, or kagoyin means actually, this is it. It's going to be me. And he brings a pasuk that the ruler of the Yidden, Adiroi Mimenu Moishle Mekir Bayetzi, that the ruler Moshiach is going to come forth from within the Yidden, which the Mefarshim understand that to mean it has to be someone who already has a streak of leadership within him, which is Rav Nachman. Although there's a famous Rambam in Igeres Taimon where the Rambam writes that actually Moshiach will be someone who you've never heard of before. He's someone that until he's known as Mashiach is unheard of. It's not someone who everyone knows about. Then one day, the famous guy will suddenly become Mashiach. Dafka is someone who's unheard of. The Rambam writes that in a letter. Okay. So Rav Nachman though said, Rav Nachman is saying different. Rav Nachman is saying fakert. Mashiach has to be someone who was originally known as a leader. Rav Nachman was married into the family of the exile ark. So fakert. This statement of Rav Nachman seems to go against that statement of the Rambam. The Gemara finishes, Amar Rav, said Rav, I min chayahu kagoyin Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Rav was a student of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. He said, if Mashiach is from someone who's alive, it's Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. I min Masya, if it's from someone who already passed, it's going to be Daniel Ish Chamudais. Daniel, the prophet Daniel. And Rashi says he's not sure if the word kagoyin means just an example, or if kagoyin means literally, that's the person. Daniel or Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Famous Gemara. Okay. Look quickly in number 7, just while we quote that Gemara. In number 7 is the Abar Benel. The Abar Benel wrote a number of Sforim on Mashiach. The Abar Benel, I guess, would call him somewhat of a Mashiachist. And the Abar Benel starts his life in Portugal. born to a very prominent family. And at some point he becomes a finance minister of Portugal, and very wealthy and very successful. At some point he was accused of an act of rebellion against the current king, and his life was in immediate danger, and he skipped the country, across to Spain, to Toledo. He went to Toledo. All of his possessions were confiscated. He starts life anew, and he actually was excited, starting a new life. Now no one knows who I am. I can learn, I can write my Sfarim. It didn't take long until King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella from Spain heard about the Abarbanel, and he was hired anew to be the finance minister of Spain. And he wasn't there too long, because in 1492, Queen Isabella, King Ferdinand gave out the Alhambra decree, which was the Girush, the expulsion of Spain. The Abarbanel actually writes, I went into the king and I spoke to him, trying to convince him. What did the Jews do? They're good citizens. Why would you send them out? And he says, but it was ineffective, because his wife had control of him, and she was under the influence of Thomas de Torquemada, the famous Grand Inquisitor. Yes, and there's a famous story that the Abarbanel brought in one day a chest full with gold, and he offered it to the king and queen on behalf of the Jews to allow us to stay here, and they were about to buckle, and all of a sudden Thomas de Torquemada, he walks in and he screams, "You're going to sell your soul for money?" And with that, they reneged on the deal, and the Yidden were expelled, and the Abarbanel as well, and he went to Italy, and he finishes his life off in Italy. But the Abarbanel wrote many Sfarim, quite a few Sfarim, discussed 3 Sfarim, a trilogy that he wrote about Moshiach, but throughout his other Sfarim as well he talks about. And in his Sefer, Yeshua's Meshichai, beautiful Sefer, he writes like this: Al Yiksha Lecha, don't wonder, Shia Melech HaMashiach Min HaKamim B'Tchiyah. He mentions it could be first some of the dead will arise, one of those will be Mashiach, which means Tchiyas HaMesim will predate the coming of Mashiach. Flip everything on its head. Not everyone will get up, some will get up. Amongst them will be the Melech HaMashiach. He says it shouldn't be, don't have any difficulty with that. Ki kvar nistapku, also the Gemara is already unsure. Omar Rav Asi, he has Rav Asi, we have Rav. If it's from those alive, it's Rebbe. If it's from the dead, it's Daniel. So the Abarbanel says fact. You know, the Rambam writes, the Rambam goes, Mashiach has to be from someone who's currently alive. But the Abarbanel says no, it doesn't have to be that way. He argues on that point. It doesn't have to be. Rav had a suffix, and that's where we end off with Rav's suffix. Fine, join me in number 8. In number 8 is a Medrash Rabbah in Eicha. You'll see where we're going with this. We're leading, all of this is leading up to a whopping Hachayim. Okay? And, fascinating stuff. In number 8, a Medrash Rabbah in Eicha, on the pasuk, Rochak mimeni menachem meishiv nafshi. Number 8, Mashmoi shel melech HaMashiach. What's his name? You see, Chazal cancels. In Psachim, they say the name preceded the world. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, all these opinions, what his name is. In Medrash Rabbah, what's his name? There's also Yishalmi and Brachas. What's his name? Everyone's there. What's his name? What's his name? What's his name? Rabbi Abba Bar Kana Amar Hashem Shemoi. His name is the same name as Hashem. That's his name. Because it says, V'zeh Shmoy Asher Yikru Hashem Tzidkenu. The name they will give is not Mashiach Tzidkenu. Hashem Tzidkenu. Because Rabbi Levi said, Tava L'medinta D'shmo K'shem Malka. It's great when the country bears the name of its king, and Shem Malka K'shem Elokeh, and the name of the king should bear the name of its God. Tava L'medinta D'shmo K'shem Malka. The country should have the name of the king, as it says, V'shem Ma'ir Miyoyim Hashem Shama, the name of the city. Yerushalayim bears Hashem's name. And Shem Malka K'Shem Elokeh, the name of the king is like God. The pasuk in Yirmiyah, Zeh Shmo Asher Yikroi, what will they call him? Hashem Tzidkenu. So his name is Hashem. By the way, that's the Gemara in Baba Basra as well. In Chazal everywhere, in Bavli, Yishayim, everywhere, there's talk about what is the name of Mashiach. Continues the Medrash, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Omer Tzemach Shmo, his name is Tzemach. As it says in Zechariah, Hinei ish tzemach shmo, his name is Tzemach, u'mitachtov yitzmach in Hilgrim. Rab Yudin b'shem Rav Eivos says Menachem, his name is Menachem. By the way, here it doesn't say Ben Chizkiah. And the Rebbe, there's some footnotes in Sichos where the Rebbe points out, in the Gemara it says Menachem Ben Chizkiah. In the Medrash it's just Menachem. Why is the Rebbe pointing that out? Okay. Continues the Medrash, because it says, Rachak mimeni Menachem, the pasuk refers to Mashiach as Menachem. And Rabbi Chanina says, Loi pligi, there's no debate if it's Tzemach or Menachem, because it's the same gematria. Chushbena didain, ke chushbena didain, the numbers are the same. Hu Menachem, hu Tzemach. So those opinions go together. The Tzemach and Menachem are the same opinion.
Is it possible that when it says Shem, it means from Noach as opposed to the Eibishter? After all,
Where would you put that in? Where would you read that?
well, if the way you want to read Shem, is it possible?
What do you think? Is that tenable in your eyes?
I don't know.
Okay. In number 9, the Medrash, that same Medrash, a couple lines later, Rabbeiva Sanguria said, Nehira Shmoi, Mashiach's name is Nehira. Shenamar, it says, Unahoira Imei Shrei, that there's light with God. But it refers to a person that's with God, the soul of Mashiach. His name is light, Nehira. Nehira Ksiv. You can pronounce it Nehira, Nehira, Nehira. It's written Nehira, his name is Nehira. Rabbi Yehuda Rab Simon says in the name of Rabbi Sheh, Hadein Malka Mashiach. This is a very important statement. The King Mashiach, if he's from those alive, David Shmei, his name is David. If he's from someone who passed away, David Shmei, his name is David. No matter what, his name is David. This refers to David HaMelech, and the source he brings is the pasuk Magdil Yeshuas Malkai. The Eibishter enlarges the salvation of his king. He does chesed leMashiachai leDavid. It doesn't say Mashiachai and to David. Mashiachai to David. It's mashma Mashiach's name is David. The Kabbalists talk about the fact that Mashiach has the soul of David. The Rikanti actually brings a big debate from the early Kabbalists if Mashiach will literally have the soul of David, or he'll just, maybe when it said David's his name, it means his name is David and is similar to David HaMelech. Or does it mean it's literally David's soul? And fine, but that's...
When you talk about names, it's about
okay.
the name or who he actually is.
Okay. So at this point, you read the Gemara, you read the Medrash, you see there's so many different opinions what his name is. Which one is it? How could they all be right? Are they all right? So, if you look in the Maharsha on the Gemara, it's not on the paper, so you'll actually have to open a Gemara in the back, unless you trust me, which I don't think any of you do. But the Maharsha writes that none of them are saying for sure this is his name. These names represent characteristics of Mashiach. The fact that is Yinoin means he's going to be exalted, an authoritative figure. That's a fact. Shiloi means a gift. The Goyim will bring Mashiach a gift. What? So this 10 is from the Abarbanel. So the Maharsha already in the Gemara points this out. They can all be right because they're all referencing certain facts of Mashiach. His name is this. It's true. He has that faculty. He has that characteristics. And it's all true. Look at number 10. Number 10 is from the Abarbanel again, Yeshua's Mashiach. He said, V'loi bo ashlei me'elu das Hashem bilvad. These complete rabbis of the Gemara and the Medrash are not just telling you what his name is. It's like irrelevant information. What's his name? Who cares what his name is? And ki kamoisha zocht is like the philosopher says, ein machloikus b'shemus. Whatever that means, no debate by names. But bo lahagid maisov v'poloisav shel melech HaMashiach. Says Abarbanel, like the Maharsha, Abarbanel is before the Maharsha, he says what they're doing is they're trying to describe the accomplishments, the activity. What is Mashiach about? Shehu ma sheyorel of Shmoi. The name describes, in Chassidus, the name of something describes what it is. B'yoy Shmoi Shiloi, having his name Shiloi represents that there's going to be peace during his days. His name Yinoi represents he will be supreme to all kings. It's Lashon Sarara. It's Lashon what? So the Maharsha says tributes based on another medrash, Yalkut Shemoni. If his name is Chanina, it means the Eibishter will give him grace and bench him. If his name is Menachem, it means he will comfort us. Isaiah, like he quotes by Noach, he will comfort us from our depression and our hardships. But here's the thing. The Maharsha doesn't explain that why Punk did the yeshiva of Shiloi say his name was Shiloi. It's true, there are many angles and facets to Mashiach, and each characteristic is described by a different name. But how uncanny is it that the yeshiva of Shiloi Punk, they found the Shiloi attribute, and the Chanini found the Chanina attribute. So that the Maharsha doesn't explain. But the Abarbanel says, Ein Safek, it's clear, Shekol Echad from these rabbis, Doirish Toiv La'atzmai. He doesn't really explain. He says, the Doirish Toiv La'atzmai, it's yeah. There's something about Mashiach which is similar to me. But he doesn't explain. The Maharal in number 11, this is the Maharal, right? So these are three of the great scholars from that time period. The Abarbanel was the oldest. He passed away in 1508. A little younger than him is the Maharal, after him is the Maharsha, but all three of them are tackling this Gemara. And in number 11 is the Maharal in his Sefer Netzach Yisrael, incredible Sefer. He says like this, beautiful. So the name describes what you're naming, right? The name, it describes the item which is being named. Mashiach contains within himself the every perfect attribute there is. So the name that you have that describes a certain attribute of yourself, Mashiach has that. Mashiach has many attributes. But you're going to see in Mashiach yourself inside Mashiach. The Alter Rebbe once said that Mashiach is going to be a Weltische. It's going to be not a chassid. He'll be, I don't know if he said the word misnagid. He's going to be a general Litvische Jew. And they asked Alter Rebbe why. And Alter Rebbe said if he was a chassid, then only the chassidim would accept him. But if he's worldly, then everyone will accept him. So I once asked an older chassid, maybe that means Mashiach will appear to everyone according to the way they are. In other words, we will see him as a chassid. To the misnagdim, he'll appear as a misnagid. And the chassid told me it's inconceivable. Can't be that's pshat. However, the Maharal does say a similar idea, not the same idea, similar idea, that you see in Mashiach yourself. He says, "Avodavar ze moira al mailas Mashiach asher koilul hakol." Mashiach includes within him everything. Ulefichach el hu elama'ayin boy. When you analyze Mashiach, umasik boy, and you understand him, kasher hu oiseh hama'ayin, the way you are, you see yourself inside of him because he is the perfection of all attributes. So whatever your name is represents that characteristic, and assuming it's a virtue, then Mashiach will have it as well. And you will, because that's who you are, you will see that inside of him. V'davar ze amra al melech HaMashiach, not on other tzaddikim, because he includes everything, as I will tell you. U'lekach nidme lemasik boi kfi mashahu. He says clearly, when you study Mashiach, you will see, it'll be like a mirror. You'll see whatever perfection you have, that's the perfection you will notice inside of him. And the Maharal says that's why each yeshiva said his name is Shila, his name is Hananya, because the fact that they had that name represented that's what they were all about. And that's what it's a fascinating Maharal. Fine. Where does this take us? It takes us on to the next page. This is where we begin. What?
Doesn't imply that it should be Yaakov or Adam? Because Yaakov and Adam are the only ones that included all the souls.
Okay, we're going to speak about those that include all souls in a moment, okay? Join me. Reb Chaim ben Attar. Reb Chaim ben Attar. The Hachayim, born in Morocco, Sali, in the 1690s, the mid-1690s, spends most of his life in Morocco. He wants to go to Eretz Yisrael, and the end of the life he does go. He gets stuck in Italy on the way. You got to pass over Italy. He goes to Italy. He went to print some of his Sfarim. He got stuck there for a bit. He ultimately makes it to Eretz Yisrael. He's there for 1 year till he passes away. In the year 1743, he was 46, 47 years old when he passed away. Okay, so he was not old. He was relatively young, 46, 47. He was 1 year in Eretz Yisrael. And we know the Baal Shem Tov said fascinating things about the Hachayim. The Baal Shem Tov is a year or two younger than the Hachayim. The Baal Shem Tov never saw him. They're an opposite. The Baal Shem Tov is in Ukraine, all the way in the east, and the Hachayim is all the way in the west in Morocco. The Baal Shem Tov very much wanted to meet him. And there's a long story, not for now, how he tried to go to Eretz Yisrael, and fascinating events. It's a very long story. And ultimately, the Baal Shem Tov was barred from going to Eretz Yisrael. Similar about the Vilna Gaon, he tried to go, and also things happened out of his control. There were many great people that wanted to make it to Eretz Yisrael, and things happened. It just didn't work out. Yes, we'll get there. And the Baal Shem Tov was actually once on Shabbos, and he was with his students. They were washing for Shalosh Shudas. And the Baal Shem Tov said, Kava ner hamarovi, the western lamp has been extinguished, referring to the Hachayim. And when he was asked how he knew, he said that in every generation, there's only one person that knows the secret to Natilas Yadayim. Heaven reveals it only to one person. And I didn't know it, the Hachayim knew it. This Shalosh Shudas, as I was washing my hands, it was revealed to me. That's how I knew the Hachayim passed away. That's what the Baal Shem Tov said. Kava ner hama, the western lamp is out.
But you got to eat Shandalas.
What? It was a Farbrengen. It was a Farbrengen. We eat Shal Shudas, it's before Mincha. We do it before Mincha. So, apparently the Baal Shem Tov said that the Hachayim has the Ruach of David HaMelech. I have the Nefesh of David HaMelech. And if we get together, we could bring down the Neshama of David HaMelech. Meaning, generally, the Mukubalim say, the Ramaz of Moshe Zakut is credited, but the idea that the Neshama has 5 parts to it. There's the Nefesh, above that the Ruach, above that the Neshama, and that's enclosed in the body. And then there are 2 levels which hover above. The Chaya, which is called the Makif HaKorav, it surrounds, but it's close. And the Yechida is the Makif HaRochek, it surrounds from a distance, the Yechida. And the Baal Shem Tov apparently said that the Hachayim has the Ruach of David, I have the Nefesh of David. Now, I will tell you like this. There is an idea that just like each person has a Nefesh, a Ruach, Neshama, etc., Judaism as a whole, the nation as a whole, has a Nefesh HaKlolis, a general Nefesh, a general Ruach, etc. And we know who those people are. The Nefesh HaKlolis, the general Nefesh of the Yidden, is David HaMelech. The general Ruach is Eliyahu HaNavi. He went up in a Ruach. The general Neshama is Moshe. His name is Neshama. Mem Shin Hei, except for the Nun. The general Chaya is Adam Harishon. The Yechida is Moshiach. Okay, this is an important Kabbalah's form. Quoted in Chassidus as well. So you have the Nefesh, the general Nefesh is David. The general Ruach is Eliyahu. The general Neshama, which means it's made up of all the small parts which each of us have. The general Neshama is Moshe. The Chaya is Adam. The Yechida is Mashiach. Okay? And that's going to be important to remember for soon. Okay, so the Hachayim only lived in Eretz Yisrael for 1 year, but he made waves. He opened the yeshiva, and he had many students. Amongst them was the great Chidah. The Chidah spent 1 year by the Hachayim, but the Chidah considers himself a student. And in number 12, the Chidah writes in the Sefer Shem Magdalim. You want to know about the commentary Hachayim? It's a pirush on the Torah to the great rabbi, the Chassid, the Holy One, Chaim Ibn Attar. But people today have a last name called Ben Adar. There are families Ben Adar, and it's Ben Attar. They come from the Hachayim, or it was a big family, the Ibn Attar. But it's been Ashkenazified to Ben Adar. It was printed in Venice around Chumash with Onkelos and Rashi. The Chidah says a whopper. The Shamanu, we heard that now in Polonia, Machshivim Oisoi Harbe. I guess in Poland, they consider the Hachayim with tremendous importance. It was printed 2 more times, and you know why that happened? Because the Rav HaChassid Kodesh Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov Higid Gedulas Nishmas Rav Chaim HaNizker. The Chidah, one of the only times he quotes the Baal Shem Tov. The Chidah was about 25 years younger than the Baal Shem Tov. He never met him. But the Chidah says that, do you know why the Hachayim is so popular in Poland? It's because the Rav HaChassid, the Baal Shem Tov, spoke about the greatness of the soul of the Hachayim. A very interesting testimony of the Chidah. So the Baal Shem Tov was koching, he was telling people, the Hachayim, so they were printing and printing. In fact, look at number 14 for a second. 14. This is a story from Reb Munshain in his Sefer Migdal Ois. He says, the Rav HaKodesh of Pinchas of Koritz, the great Reb Pinchas of Koritz, a student of the Baal Shem Tov, he said, learning Hachayim is, it's great for the soul, just like Zohar HaKodesh. Because Rashbi was the Neshama of Moshiach in his generation. Rashbi possessed the soul of Moshiach in his generation. And the Hachayim was Nishmas Moshiach B'Dorei. The Hachayim had the soul of Moshiach while he was alive. L'chayra, what that means is, there's a famous letter of the Chassam Sofer. The Rebbe quotes it, everybody quotes it, a famous letter of the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, until he was 80, he did not know that God was going to call upon him to redeem the Yidden. Until he stood by the burning bush and Hashem said, you're the guy. So too, the Chassam Sofer says, in every single generation there's somebody who fits the bill to be Mashiach if the time calls for it. If the time is ripe, God will appear to that individual and he will say, you're the one. And the Chassam Sofer says, until that point, even the person himself doesn't know, just like Moshe. The person doesn't know, but he is fitting, and should the clock strike 12, it's time to go, the Eibishter will appear and tell him. So l'chayra, that's what the Pinchas Koritz is saying, that if Mashiach would have come before the year 1743, before the Hachayim passed, he would have been the guy. Continues Reb Pinchas. Now you got to check his genes. Upakad albonov, I don't know. She had fisul b'chol shana. Reb Pinchas's kids, they had they printed. They were printers. He told them every year you should print the Hachayim. Every year you got to run a new printing. Va'az, and then you'll be saved from all issues. And they taka did it. The problem is there were millions of copies of the Hachayim. La'achar shenisraba, there was so much Hachayim, people weren't buying it. They stopped printing. The year they stopped printing was the famous story when the Pinchas Koritz's grandchildren, the Slavita printing press, the famous story that the two brothers, Shmuel Abba and the two Shapira, their last name was, like the Pinchas, the grandchildren, one day in their printing press in Slavita, there was a guy that took his own life, and ultimately they were held responsible for the murder. Sure, they were tried and felt guilty, and there's a whole story about that, not for now, but says, according to Reb Munshain, and he's very exact in his stories, that happened the year they stopped, that they did. Reb Pinchas said every year. They couldn't, doesn't matter, you got to print. You got to print. It's not for selling, it's for your, Reb Pinchas said, exactly. It's for you want to stay alive? You want to go to Siberia, don't print. You want to stay here in Slavita, you print.
Stacking up all times.
Oh, go up to number 13. There was a famous doctor called Dr. Bernard. Now, he didn't live in New York in the 1980s. He lived in the end of the 1700s, early 1800s. Chaim David, I think his name was, but Bernard. He was the very famous doctor who originally was not from. He went to Berlin, and he was an academic and a great doctor. Later in life, he became frum and he became a Chassidish Rebbe. There's lots written about Dr. Maybe let me share about him one time. He was the famous Rebbe doctor, rabbi doctor. That's not a new thing. He was Rebbe Dr. Bernard, and he was close with the Chayz of Lublin, like big Chassidish Rebbes. So no, here's an incredible story. Number 13.
Where's it from?
This is from a sefer I have that collects some of these stories. This Bernard was a Baal Tshuva, he did Tshuva. When he was very old and he was lying in his bed, Kaidem Petirasai, he was visited by the Tiferes Shloim of Radomsk. It was a great Chassidish Rebbe. And the Tiferes Shloim came to visit him, Lavakre, to visit him while he was ill. And he told the doctor, Bal Yitztar on my, don't be afraid, don't be pained on the beginning of your life, or you weren't frum for years. He quoted him the pasuk. It says by a Nazir, Hayamim harishonim yiplu, the early days will disappear. So the doctor said, no. I don't want my early days to disappear. He said, B'schus the Hachayim HaKadosh that I learned Baal Peh, I was able to transform my entire life. I hope that I'm going to be able to take the years of my youth, even though he wasn't from then. Somehow, by learning Hachayim Baal Peh, he transformed his entire life. He was known as a great tzaddik, this doctor, and he taught Chassidus and everything. But he said somehow he was able to transform all those years that he did in Berlin. Tshuva out of love, yeah. Only with the Hachayim though. But without the Hachayim, he couldn't do it. Hold on, next story, number 15. The Rebbe in his Rishimus has a story you wouldn't believe about the Hachayim. He says, the Baal Hachayim ala Torah, halach pam b'shiara. The Hachayim was once traveling in northern Africa in a caravan of people going through the desert of northern Africa. Ubekidiv l'Shabbos Kodesh, it was almost Shabbos, and I'm not going, lo yratza l'lecha, so I didn't want to continue. And he stayed alone with his Misharis. Friday night comes and they have company. There's a lion, Hoylech v'Korv, approaching. The Hachayim, you know what he did? He lowered his pants. The Hachayim lifts up his talus and he opened his pants. And he showed his bris to the lion. Now many people are ashamed of that part of their body, but for the Hachayim that was the holiest part. It's like Avram, and he told Eliezer, I want you to take an oath, I want you to hold my bris. He showed it to the lion. And the lion, Rovatz, the lion was still. And the lion remained that way from Friday night till after Shabbos. B'motzoi Shabbos Kodesh, after Shabbos, the Hachayim rode on the lion to reach the caravan. The problem is the Hachayim's Misharis, there was two people, the Hachayim had his attendant. He couldn't go on the lion. So the Hachayim gave him a ksav yad. Yeah, this is a kid story. What type of kid story is it?
The famous kid story is something similar.
With the, okay. With the, okay, I guess. 30 years ago, this was a kid's story. Today, even adults don't talk about these things. Anyway. The Hachayim gave his attendant a piece of paper, a ksav yad, something that his own manuscript. The Hachayim told him, "Loi la'anich, don't let go of this paper, and you'll be protected. And you should walk, and I'll wait until you come. I'll wait till you come." And Taka, Sunday morning, both of them reached the caravan. That's the end of the story, the Rebbe says. Okay, very interesting story. So, and by the way, the Rebbe is quoting this about another story with the Rebbe Rashab, but the Hachayim was known as someone whose bris was holy. His bris was holy. When your bris is holy, you show it to the lion backs off. There was a great chassid by the name of Rabbi Hillel of Paritch, who was a great, one of the cardinal chassidim of Chabad. And Rabbi Hillel was once asked by someone, how is it that you're so holy? You're such a big tzaddik, you're so holy. And Rabbi Hillel said, I'll tell you why, when I was younger, I was a kid, couldn't sleep. I left my room and I saw my father was in the other room. He was sitting and he was crying. He was crying. Middle of the night, sitting and crying. I said, Tata, what's wrong? He said, Hillel, you should never know. You should never know. He was crying from what's called Chatas Neurim, the sins of the youth, not being careful with the bris. And what Hillel said, that when that had such an impression on him, he remained holy his entire life. That's why he was the big tzaddik that he was. So to the Hachayim, what part of his kedusha was the fact he was so perfect with his bris. So, where does this take us? It takes us to number 10. In this week's parsha, the Hachayim has an incredible commentary. Number 16. It's a 16. 16. He says the pasuk that speaks about giving tzedakah. When you have, he says, "B'derech remez yirmez lahoyer ha'ara gedayla." You could learn the pasuk about tzedakah. It's teaching an incredible teaching. It says when you have from one of your brothers in one of your gates. When it says one of your brothers, it means echad hamayuchad shebe'umah. The pasuk is not just talking about handing tzedakah to an impoverished fellow. It's talking about Moshiach, the one miyuchad shebe'umah, the great person that we're all hoping and we're awaiting to see. The Melech Yisrael, our Moshiach, he's an Evian, he's a poor man. He's compared to an Ani, like it says in Zechariah, Ani v'roichev al chamar. And the Amr, it says Bach, it says when the poor man will be amongst you, Pirish b'siboscha, it's because of you. You know why Mashiach is impoverished, meaning he's stuck. He's not in control of coming to redeem us like he would like to. It's because of us, because of Averis. He really wants to come redeem us, etc. He quotes a story from Rabbi Shua ben Levi, that when Rabbi Shua ben Levi met Mashiach, Mashiach asked him, how are the Jews doing? And Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, the Jews are sitting there waiting for you to come. When Mashiach heard that, he began to cry, Bechir Rabbah, because he had such a desire to come and redeem us. Now that story that he refers to is not found anywhere in Gemara. It's found in some random medrash that somebody found that Hachayim must have been referring to. That the Gemara speaks, Rabbi Shua ben Levi met Mashiach, but he asked him, when are you going to come? It doesn't say this story. They said, we're waiting for you. Mashiach started crying. Anyhow, the Hachayim goes through the whole pasuk, describing how it refers to Mashiach. Look in number 17, when it says, Ba'achad sha'arecha, in one of your gates, Lahoyer Elov, that refers to Mashiach, because the gate refers to the courts. And he is the one in the gate. He is the greatest of the court. No one can teach like him. And it says that he's going to judge based on smell. Fine. Look at the next thing. Oy yirtza al zeh aderech. He says another thing. When it says Mashiach is a poor man amongst your gates, it's like the Zohar says. The Zohar says if one community or one shul would awaken in tshuva, Mashiach would come right away. So that's what it means. He's ba'achad sha'arecha. He's waiting for one community to repent. The Zohar said if one community would do tshuva, Mashiach would definitely come. By the way, the Alter Rebbe has a mimer. The Rebbe quoted in a Sikha in 1983 at the end, in Parshas Hazinu, the Rebbe says there's a mimer of the Rebbe, of the Alter Rebbe, which was printed in some random place, and the Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe said if one tzaddik would do complete tshuva, Mashiach would come. You know, the one tzaddik, there has to, every generation there's for sure one tzaddik who does complete tshuva.
According to the Alter Rebbe, tzaddik never did an aver. What is he doing tshuva?
The Asavit said there's a different v'haruach toshu ve'loikim asher nasana. The tshuva is not for sin. The tshuva is to relink the soul to the Eibush like it was in heaven. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that even a tzaddik in this world, his devekus, the way he clings to Hashem is much weaker down here than it is in heaven. Although it's known that the Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya, which is a sefer of Beinanim, and he wrote another sefer called Sefer Shel Tzadikim. And there's an old tradition, I heard this from my Zayda, a tradition that in Tanya, when the Alter Rebbe talks about a tzaddik, it's only the tzaddik that a Beinani can relate to. The Alter Rebbe that tzaddik has no yetzer hara and all these things. Everything it says in Tanya, it's the tzaddik that a beinoni can learn about, study about, and hope maybe to be one day. But then there's a whole nother sefer shel tzaddikim that's completely beyond the pale of a beinoni. And it could be in Tanya when it says that tzaddik, even that who lives a perfect life, but nonetheless his dveikus down there is weaker than it was before he was born. You could say that's the tzaddik that's relative to a beinoni, but maybe a real tzaddik could be. Anyhow, but the Alter Rebbe said this, that one tzaddik does tshuva, boom, Mashiach will come. The Zohar says a congregation. Look now, by the way, the Hachayim also says, if you noticed, that when it says about Mashiach, because he's learning the whole passage about Mashiach, is ba'artzecha in your land, he has to be conceived and born in Eretz Yisrael. If you look where the number 17 is, in that paragraph starting ba'achad sha'arecha, look 6 lines down, it says, Hayrasa v'leidasa b'yitzhak d'Yisrael, Mashiach has to be conceived and born in the Holy Land. The Hachayim says, famous Hachayim, Mashiach has to be conceived and born in Eretz Yisrael. But look at number 18. Number 18, the bottom, he says, the pasuk finishes and says, Me'achicha ha'evyon, from your brother the Evyon. Pirish, it means, Mesibas achicha ha'evyon, the famous impoverished brother from Mashiach. Sheyarich adam b'daita, you should imagine, sha'amaisa, that when you give tzedakah, you're trying to release the impoverished brother, namely Mashiach. And who is Mashiach? The Mashiach Hashem, the anointed one of God, Shmoi Chaim, his name is Chaim. He finishes off, his name is Chaim. The Chaim, whose name is Chaim, says Mashiach's name is Chaim. So, that's what he writes.
Just like Yinun and all the others.
But that was the yeshiva saying about the Rebbe. Here's the guy himself. Look on the next page in number 19. In number 19, in Pardes Yosef, it says, B'sefer dvar yoim b'yoimai, it brings a ma'aseh, a wondrous story. This is from the Sefer Pardes Yosef on Chumash. He says that Reb Pinchas of Koretz very much desired that they should print the Hachayim. So one time the printer brings Reb Pinchas the copy of what they printed, a Chumash with the Hachayim. When Reb Pinchas of Koretz opened it, he noticed that in Parshas Re'eh, the printer was mashmit. He left out the words Moshiach Hashem Shmei Chaim, the name of God. His name is Chaim. So he asked the printer, "What's going on?" And the printer says, "Listen, I know the Chaim was talking about himself. I couldn't write it. I couldn't print it. I had to remove it. I couldn't print that." So the Pinchas opened up the Chumash on a different pasuk in Parshas Nosai about the Soita, where it says about the Soita, "Va'amra isha amen amen," she'll say amen twice. Rashi quotes there from the Gemara, "Amen me ish zeh, amen me ish acher." She says that I'm innocent. I didn't sin, not with the man you accuse me of, and not with somebody else. Now the Hachayim also quotes that Gemara, "Amen me ish zeh, amen me ish acher." The problem is in that Chumash, the word acher, instead of saying acher with the ches, had osher with a shin. And this printer's name was Osher. The printer's name was Osher. And the Pinchas of Koretz said, Amen from this man, Amen im meish Osher. And the printer's name was Osher. And the Pinchas said, look, you signed your name over here. Apparently, this person actually was exposed later that he... Right.
What?
It was exposed that the guy was an unfaithful husband.
Oh.
Yeah. So, now, if that happened, I don't know. That just definitely adds a nice cherry on top of the story. No, it's like somebody once came to the Tzemach Tzedek for Yechidus, and he was a misnagid. But he came in and he had a kvittel with the names of his kids. It started off B'nai Mishpachti, this is my family with all the kids. And the Tzemach Tzedek reason he says, Bonai Mishivchasi, my children from my maidservant. The guy says, no, B'nai Mishpachti. Tzemach says, okay, let's try again. He goes, Bonai Mishivchasi. And the guy says, Rebbe, it's B'nai Mishpachti. The Tzemach Tzedek looks at him and says, who are you trying to fool? Because that guy had, yeah. Anyhow, so according to tradition, the end of the story was this guy was exposed to be an unfaithful husband. But the way it's recorded in Pardes Yosef, you don't have that that juicy ending, but you do have the Pinchas. Look, you signed your name over here. If you mess with the Hachayim by taking away that you don't call him Moshiach, you're gonna write in your own Chumash Usher that you're the
So you have to believe
the
that
knife.
Hashem is Mashiach.
You can't take it out. Now, did the Hachayim mean his Mashiach, or is just saying the guy's name is Chaim?
Was he born in
Or
Israel?
it could be metaphorically speaking.
So very good question. The Hachayim is born in Morocco. In the very paragraph, he says that Mashiach has to be conceived and born in Israel. How could he be saying about himself? So the Chida, in his Sefer Maris Ha'ayin on Gemara, he quotes on the Gemara in Sanhedrin in number 6. He says that my Rebbe, the Hachayim, in his comment to Parshas Re'eh, says, by the way, his name is Chaim. The Chida seems to be quoting it innocently, that the Hachayim was just saying, there's Yanai, there's Tzemach, blah, blah, blah. There's also, I think his name is Chaim. Very innocently. Well, this printer thought that he was talking about that he himself is Chaim.
Don't forget.
Like that Bible and the Maharal said. Yeah, according to that Bible and the Maharal, your name represents your milas. That's what you see in Mashiach. You're not saying that's Mashiach's name. You're saying that's the quality I see. Because it's like a mirror, just like we explained before. Look at number 20. Hold on.
The Chesed says for Chaim also, right? You mentioned that? The Chida himself was Chaim.
Okay, Chaim Yosef David. Yeah, okay. No. The Chidah is quoting, my Rebbe says his name is Chaim. That's already to say the Chidah meant to hint that he himself. That already there's no. Yeah. Okay, good. Look in number 20.
Okay, the first one was Chaim.
In number 20, there's a sefer called Beis Shmuel. It's a commentary on Even Ezer. And he's discussing when you write a get, we should never have to write one, but you have to get the names perfect. How do you spell the name Shachna? It's with a chaf. It's Lashon, it's probably meant to be Shechina, but Lashon of resting. Because the Goin Moreinu Arab Reb Shachna Zal, there was a famous genius by the name of Sholem Shachna of Lublin. Who was he? So you gave something about Reb Yaakov Polak years ago. Because you spoke to me about it. Yeah. Reb Yaakov Polak was the father of Pilpul, okay, in the end of the 1400s, early 1500s. Reb Yaakov Polak lived in Poland, and he was the father of Pilpul. Didn't write any Sfarim. He had a student called Reb Sholem Shachn of Lublin, who was the Ramah's father-in-law. The famous Reb Sholem Shachna. In fact, there's a well-known eulogy that we say the Arizal said about the Ramak. When the Ramak passed away in Tzfas, the Arizal gave a eulogy and he said that the Ramak passed away for no reason. It's only because of the original sin of eating from the tree. And he based on the pasuk in Kiseitse that when you're going to see a person who has a chet, mishpat mavis, there's no explanation of why they died, v'salisa oisel eitz, will blame it on the tree. In many sources it says the Ramah gave that very eulogy about his father-in-law, Reb Sholem Shachna. And historians have studied who actually gave the eulogy. Did anyone give the eulogy? Did they both give the eulogy? And yeah, Reb Sholem Shachna was an incredible person. He had a big yeshiva in Lublin, right? So says the Beis Shmuel, Nosan Simon al Atzma. Reb Shachna gave a simon about his name. How do you spell it? He quoted the pasuk L'shichnoi sidrishu. This week's parsha. L'shichnoi sidrishu. You should be doirish shichnoi, which teaches you that's how you spell Shachna. Shaloi toima bebeis. It's not Shavna with a beis. It's Shachna with a chaf. So number 21 comes Rabbi Yosef Shaul Natanson. Rabbi Yosef Shaul Natanson, the great rabbi of Lvov, and he says. Tama, he says, Pasha, wonder, Mat Sorech Litein Simon Bedover. Reb Sholem Shachna had to give a simon. It's not Shavna with a beis, it's with a chaf. Everyone knows how you spell Shachna. So you have to look at the left side that's broken up. So it says Reb Yosef Shaul Natans, and let me tell you what happened. Of course, Shachna is not with a beis. Maybe you think Shachna is with a ches. I would say maybe you might think Shachna is with a ches. So therefore, Reb Sholem Shachna said l'shichna sidrus with a chaf, but says Reb Yosef Shaul Natanson, that's not the word. Reb Yosef Shaul says, I heard like this, that in Krakow there was an old set of shas that Reb Shalom Shachner was Magia, he had footnotes on the side. Now go back to the 21 in the second line on the right side. On Perek Chelik, in the end of Sanhedrin, Reb Shalom Shachner has a little note. On the names of Mashiach, he comments and says, Ani Omer Shachner Shmoi. Reb Shalom Shachner wrote on the side of his Gemara, Mashiach's, on the Gemara where it says Yinoin and all these other names, it's Shachner, as it says L'Shichnoi Sidrashu. That was the simon Reb Shachner gave. So Reb Yosef Shalom was saying like this. The Beis Shmuel seems to say that why did Reb Shalom Shachner conjure up the pasuk L'Shichnoi Sidrashu? You should know how to spell his name. Says Yosef Shalom, that's Bechalma what it was. He marshals the pasuk L'Shichnoi Sidrashu. Because what does it mean? You should seek out Shichna, seek out Shachna. Shachna is the name of Mashiach. So he says, Mashiach's name is Shachna. Just like the Hachayim said, Mashiach's name is Chaim. So what are they saying? Are they just saying innocently, that's Mashiach's name? That's one option. Isn't it uncanny that that's their own name? So for that we have the Maharal, not Barbanel that we saw, that Fakert. Mashiach, you see the perfection that exists in yourself. That's demonstrated by your name. And you're saying, I see that in him, so he has that name, because the name doesn't mean that's his name. It demonstrates that particular great characteristic. And you see in him what you have yourself, as we saw before. No, the Beis was what the Beis Shmuel thought Reb Shalom Shachner was telling you. He quoted L'Shichnoi Sidrashu, you should know it's Shichnoi, it's Shachna, not Shavna. Says Yosef Shalom, that's not why he quoted the pasuk. He quoted the pasuk to, you should seek out Shachna. Shachna is the name of Mashiach. Or maybe Taka, they were the actual Mashiach of the generation. Maybe they were. The Baal Shem Tov said the Hachayim had the Ruach of David, and if we would meet, we would bring the soul, the Shem of David. Maybe the Hachayim, isn't that what Pinchas Koritzer said? You know, it's brought that the Hachayim, the year he lived in Eretz Yisrael, he went to Miron for Lag BaOmer. And when he came to Miron, he was shaking on the ground with hands, he was shaking, and he said, I'm in total awe from the Eibishter and from all of the souls that are here today. It's interesting because when the Frierdiker Rebbe was in Eretz Yisrael, the Frierdiker Rebbe went to Rabbi Meir and he went to the cave of Rashbi. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, by Rabbi Meir, it was awesome. There was oyim, it was neuridik. It was awesome. There was like a fear. By Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it was Hamish. It was very Hamish. Because as a Chassidish Rebbe, you teach the Kabbalah, the depth of the Pnimius HaTorah, the soul, the Nishmasa, the soul of Torah. So Barashbi was Hamish. So you wonder why the Hachayim, who was a great Kabbalist, why when he went to the Rashbi in Miron, he fell on the ground out of fear. So I'll tell you what my gut feeling is, that the Hachayim does have a student who records that he once went with the Hachayim to Miron, and the Hachayim was full of simcha and full of love. So I think maybe my gut tells me, and take it or leave it, you'll probably leave it, but when he went on Lag BaOmer particularly, it wasn't just Rashbi's soul there. He said that all the souls of all the tzaddikim are here, so he was overwhelmed and there was a fear. But when he just went to the Rashbi, there was love, there was joy, just like the Frierdiker Rebbe said, it was Hamish. So I think maybe they're closer. But to the Hachayim, the Baal Shem Tov said incredible things about him. So maybe Taka they meant that they were the Mashiach of the generation. So look at number 22. This is Reb Reuven Margolis. We have to quote a Margolis in the Shir. He quotes from a letter of the Ramah. That we actually have the Ramah's Tshuvas there, and I would have loved to get it, if not for the fact that the door is barricaded with 15 deadbolts. But, so the Ramah, in his Tshuvas, he has a letter from the son of Reb Shachna, who wrote about his father's passing. Nitrafa Ashar, the time, the Aron HaKodesh has been captured. It's been taken to the yeshiva in heaven, the light of the exile. Ruach Apeinu Mashiach Hashem. He refers to his father as the anointed one of God, the rabbi of all the rabbis, the genius of all geniuses, the leader, my master, my etc. Shalom Hamachuna Shachna. Shachna was a nickname. His name was actually Shalom. Shachna was a nickname. So that's what his son wrote. So Reuven Margolis is telling you that the son called him Moshiach. Was the son just throwing that accolade, or was there really a feeling? Right. Yeah. Look at number 25 at the bottom. The Rebbe in a Sikha quotes from the Stei Chemed, who says, in every generation, Hoyumeshur etzlam b'chol dor mihu. The Stei Chemed, writing this over 100 years ago, says in every generation, there was an estimation of who Mashiach was going to be, would be at that time. Like Rav said, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, in his generation, they said v'yodu, that he was the one. The Stei Chemed says, so too in every generation. It was known, maybe not known to everyone, maybe only known to a few, but there was knowledge that of who would be tzarchli as echad muchshir. There's always someone who's fit. Maybe the Yidden will be zeichet to be redeemed. Now that's like the Chassam Sofer's letter. And the Stei Chemed says so too about the Arizal. The students of the Arizal said that in the Arizal generation he was the guy. And the Cholzil Posh, all of that is simple. Now, the Stei Chemed does say while the Arizal was alive, they said it was the Arizal. It doesn't say afterwards. By the Baal Shem Tov, we know many of his students said that he's the guy. Rabbi Nachum of Chernobyl believed, even after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, that the Baal Shem Tov is still the guy. And if Mashiach comes, it's going to be him. Yeah, it's recorded in Sfarim. It wasn't black and white that he said it, but he said words that other Rabbeim understood to mean. It's recorded in Sfarim, I can show you later, that even after the Baal Shem Tov's passing, he still believed the Baal Shem Tov is the one. Okay.
Makes sense. The Neon, he was...
Yeah. The Rambam seems to say he has to be currently living and breathing, but we saw that Abarbanel disagrees. Okay. Now I just want to show you two notes of the Rebbe, okay? 2 notes of the Rebbe, very important. In number 23, the Rebbe says, Va'anan chsidim, as chsidim, nana abasrayu. We will comment following all the opinions of a Gemara of what Mashiach's name is. We will say concerning our Rebbes, and specifically my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, whose name was that Yosef Shmoi. We're going to say Mashiach's name is Yosef. And the Rebbe quoted Psukim, just like Shalom Shachna quoted a pasuk. Now the Hachayim didn't bring a pasuk that his name is Chaim. Shalom Shachna brought L'shich Noi Sidrash on this week's parsha. But the Rebbe says a pasuk in Yeshaya, Yosef Adonai Shenis Yadai, the Eibishter will stretch out his hand again, and he will gather the dispersed Jews. And also Yitzchak, as it says in Tilim, Az Yimale Schoik Pinu, then Schoik, laughter will fill our mouths. So the Rebbe says we will do the same thing as everyone else did. What Dvei Rab Shila did, we're going to say his name is Yosef Yitzchak. Now what's the Rebbe saying? Are we just saying that Mashiach's name is Yosef Yitzchak? It describes Mashiach? Or he's saying the Frierdiker Rebbe himself was Mashiach? What's he saying? So in number 24, the Rebbe tells us very clear. Number 24 is a footnote in a sikha called Beis Rabbeinu Sheba Bovel, all about the importance of 770. Where the leader of the generation davens, where the tzaddik davens, it's a holy, very holy, and it's the Beis Hamikdash of the diaspora. Now in number 24, the Rebbe explains the following theory. Lohori, let me point out. Okay, you have to focus, you have to follow this. B'chol echad ve'echad misol, in every single Jew there's a spark of Mashiach. Every person has a nefesh, you have a ruach, you have a neshama, chay, and yechida. One of those 5 levels is called the spark of Mashiach. It's the yechida. Valpiza, and based on this we can explain that Chazal say on the pasuk that Bilam said, Dorach koichav miYaakov, a star has shone forth from Jacob. And it refers to Mashiach. That's a Yerushalmi and Tainus. Rabbi Kiva said about Bar Kochva, Dorach koichav miYaakov, a star has gone out of Yaakov. It refers to Mashiach. Yet the Yerushalmi in Ma'aser Sheni says it refers to every Jew. So the Yerushalmi contradicts itself. Is the star referred to Messiah or every Jew? That both of them are true. because in every Jew there's a spark of Mashiach. Now the Rebbe quotes this from the Sefer Me'orei Naim. That's Reb Nachum Chernobyl. Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, who was one of the greatest students of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. By the way, the Alter Rebbe was once sitting with some friends and he started shaking. And they asked Alter Rebbe what's going on. He pointed to the window. Through the window, down the street, they saw Reb Nachum of Chernobyl was walking. So they told the Alter Rebbe, you're shaking from him, he's far away. The Alter Rebbe said, Reb Nachum can cause dread even from a far distance. It's a very great man, Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, sure. And Reb Nachum writes that every Jew is a spark of Mashiach. So the star shooting forth from Yaakov refers to Mashiach and every Jew. Every Jew is a spark of Mashiach. Now, says the Rebbe, which part of the soul is Bechinas HaYechidah? The Yechidah inside each person, that is the spark of Mashiach. I told you before that David HaMelech is the general Nefesh, Eliyahu is the general Ruach, Moshe is the general Neshama, Adam is the general Chaya, and Mashiach is the general Yechidah. Meaning, Mashiach is really the collectivity of all Yechidus. So each of our personal Yechidus is a spark. Nitzitz, we have a spark of the general Yechidah, which is the soul of Mashiach. Fine. So that's what Mashiach is. So the Rebbe says, we know that the Nasi is everything. Rashi writes in Parshas Chukas that the Nasi of the generation, he is equal to everyone. You know what that means? It means that every individual soul of the generation has their place in the soul of the Nasi. Which means that the soul of the Nasi includes in it all of our Yechidus. So he is the general Yechidah. So he has to be Mashiach. He includes inside of himself, being that the Nasi encapsulates everything of that generation, so he has all of those individual sparks of every soul, which is the individual parts of the Yechidah. By encapsulating all of that, automatically he becomes the Yechidah Klalis, which is the soul of Mashiach. And that's why he is the Mashiach of the generation. That's the Rebbe's explanation, which means the Nasi of the generation is the Mashiach of the generation. Okay, the Rebbe wrote this clear, black and white. Which means in number 23, which was a different sikha, when he said we're going to call Mashiach Yosef Yitzchak, it doesn't just mean we're going to describe him with that name like we saw before. No! It means literally that is, and the Rebbe was not afraid to say this, and therefore it's very simple. If we believe that the Rebbe is still the Nasi like he was before he passed on Gimel Tammuz, if we believe that the Rebbe, the generation, he is still the leader, he's still the Nasi, so then the Rebbe's own words over here say that, he is going to be the Mashiach. People ask me, do I believe the Rebbe's Mashiach? So I say, whoa, what do you mean the Rebbe's Mashiach? Mashiach hasn't come yet. Say Jews are dying, Jews are suffering, this is Mashiach. So Mashiach hasn't come, B'chal. What do you mean the Rebbe is Mashiach? Mashiach's not here yet. So they say, okay, let's reframe the question. You want to ask me when Mashiach will come, do I believe it's going to be the Rebbe? So that's a very, it's a random question. Do you stop people on the street and ask them when Mashiach's going to come? Do you think it's a random, theoretical question.
Doesn't seem so random from the share.
Right. So and usually when you go down that path, the whole thing fizzles out and then they move on to the next attack. But to say the Rebbe is Mashiach, or Mashiach's not here yet. Although the Rebbe did tell someone in dollars, you can hear it, the Rebbe did say that the Yemois HaMashiach have begun. Someone asked the Rebbe about it, and the Rebbe said they started a long time ago. That's fine. The Shalah speaks about the fact that the Shalah describes Mashiach's coming will be different than leaving Mitzrayim. By Mitzrayim was Barach Ha'am, the Yidden fled. It says in Yeshaya that now, b'menusa lo yisalech, you're not going to flee. This colors we don't flee. It's a slow process, a long process. So maybe you might, that just means that there's a period where it could happen. So the Rebbe said that the days of Mashiach have already started. I understand that to mean you don't need Mashiach for the era to begin. So the era started. But to say the person Mashiach's already here as Mashiach, to me, you can't say that Mashiach's not here yet. Yidden are suffering the way they're suffering. This is not Mashiach. But in truth, when Mashiach will reveal himself, do I believe it's going to be the Rebbe? Well, according to the teachings over here, I think I don't see two ways about it. And we hope and we pray. And as Chassidim, we shouldn't be ashamed and shouldn't be abashed to say that, listen, if Reb Nachum Shenobler felt it about the Baal Shem Tov, we can definitely feel it about the Rebbe. The Rebbe explained it. It's a very simple equation. It's a very simple equation. The numbers are very simple and...
I've thought it about it.
Exactly. If it's from those alive, right. No, but even after the passing, so, right. He said it when... It's mashma, he said, if it's from those that are alive currently. He said it while he was alive. Anyhow, so... listen, we're speaking about Mashiach, the name of who Mashiach is. Listen, let the Eibishter finally bring Mashiach. I'll end off with a cute story. There was a great Litvischer Dov known as the Yeshuas Yankov, Rabbi Yankov Orenstein, who about 200 years ago was a brilliant mind, a great, great scholar. And he had a good sense of humor. Anyways, he once walked into shul, and there was a guy davening, and he starts saying, during Kaddish, V'yatzmach porkane v'korev Mashiach, right? And by the Ashkenazim, they don't say those words. Ooh, and there was a fight in shul, and they were screaming and yelling. So Rabbi Orenstein patches in the bim, everyone's quiet. He says, Eibishter, bring Mashiach already, and this whole argument will fall off, because no longer are we going to ask for V'yatzmach porkane v'korev Mashiach. Bring Mashiach already, and this whole argument will end. So that's it. Mashiach is also in Kumen. No more arguments. There'll be peace. May it happen very soon.